Everyone, this is Dr. Clinton in the house. So today I'm going to basically talk a little bit about this topic you are seeing right here. And today is February 11th, 2024. I just finished my ICU rotation. That for my program, it's the toughest rotation there is schedule-wise. So approximately 80 hours, a little over 80 hours. So I was thinking about making this video because I think it's going to be helpful for many of you that might end up seeing this. And I just finished this ICU rotation, and today is going to be also a trip day. So later on today, I will be traveling with my wife and dogs to Costa Rica. First time we're going to Costa Rica after we set foot here in the United States. So it's going to be a pretty nice trip. I hope I'm going to enjoy it. I'm sure it will be great. And yeah, I just wanted to make this video because I have real fresh information for you guys and all the things that went through in this rotation as a second year resident. So I would really like to share it with you. Of course, do not mind these small letters right here. We'll go one by one. So these are the points we'll talk about. No need to read through it, but if you want to see it, just pause the video, but we'll go one by one. So why am I going to talk to you about how to survive medical residency and or 80 plus work weeks, 80 plus hour work weeks? Well, I think that at this point in time, I have a little bit to talk about because this is my second rodeo. So it's the second time I go through residency and in two basically different continents. So first time I went through residency was cardiology residency. Here you can see it on the left. This was the year 2019 approximately, but I started residency in Costa Rica, Central America, from 2016 to 2021. So this is one of my night shifts. This was like 2 a.m. in the morning, and here I am, and here are my beloved students, which ended up calling themselves Clinton students. So it really makes me happy that they actually felt good to be my students. They would go with me on night shifts, and no one was paying me anything to receive them, and no one was actually obliging them to go with me. They just wanted to learn. They thought I was a good teacher, and yeah, we really shared good times, and many of them already went into specialties, and I'm really proud about being part of their formation. So that's one image right here, 2019. This other image is just me going through some files in Costa Rica. Here you have the desk, all the nice things, Pinterest things from Costa Rica. So I'm not sure if that's a word in English, so let's leave it at that. Look it up, just colorful, right? And here it's me, year 2024, as a medical resident in the United States. So now completing internal medicine. And the journey goes on. So it's not going to finish here. We're going to probably continue, but stay tuned for the future. So after basically, by this time, I've done almost 8 years of residency, and I still have some years more to go. So that would equate to way more years in residency than most people in the world. So I think that at this time I could give you some solid empirical recommendations as to what to do, what not to do, and that's what I'm going to do. So basically the topic is how to survive medical residency, or how to survive any stressful job, because medical residency is stressful. There is stress. Anyone that tells you there's no stress, they haven't gone through it, or they have some sort of bipolar disorder and are going through hypomania or mania, because it is always going to be stressful. So I'm going to show you what are my top tips that I can recall after I just went through a month-long rotation, which averages out about a little bit more than 80 hours a week. And yeah, 80 hours a week, even if you're doing what you love, is always gonna end up being somewhat painful. So you can tell me like you love working in being a veterinarian. You can love working at X or Y. You can love being an astronaut, right? But whatever you're doing over 80 hours a week or around 80 hours a week, yeah, you start to be like, okay, I want some me time, right? I want to have some time off. This is starting to get painful. So for most of you out there, for most medical residents, you have to understand that pain is temporary. And most of the jobs out there shouldn't be above 80 hours a week. So remember, the designation or definition of a full work schedule is going to be 40 hours. So a full time job is 40 hours a week. Half time, or it's going to be 20 hours, and part time is going to be less than 40 hours. So full time job is 40 hours, and it makes sense. You work 40 hours a week. Yeah, you feel accomplished. You feel like, yeah, it was enough time here, and now I have some time off, and I'm going to rest. But if you're working about 80 hours a week, you're working twice. You're working 2 weeks in one, basically. So how would you feel? Well, of course, you'll feel exhausted. You'll feel tired. You'll feel like, you'll question yourself. You'll be like, am I really made for this thing? Should I really be in this? Do I have what it takes to be here? And you'll start questioning yourself, and that's normal. All of you will probably question yourself, unless you have some, as I mentioned, bipolar there. You will question yourself, and you will question your foundations. You can be whoever you want, the most motivated, driven person. After 80 hours in there, you'll start questioning, like, is this the job for me? Most of you, and this is great, most of you will only have to work 80 hours a week while you're undergoing residency or you're undergoing training, right? While you're in residency, yeah, we have to admit it, you're cheap labor, right? You're learning, but in the end, you're also cheap labor, right? Because if you're working 80 hours a week, how much are you earning an hour? You're earning about $8 an hour. And the minimum wage in many places is going to be like $14 an hour. So the person who is working in whatever, McDonald's, Chipotle, are probably earning $15 an hour, while you're earning $8 an hour working 80 hours a week, right? When you make the math, that's what you're going to be earning if you're working approximately 80 hours. So yeah, it's extenuating, it's tiresome, it makes you fatigued. So even if you question yourself, it's normal, you're going to question yourself. So just understand that medical residency in general is temporary. And part of the criteria I used to actually choose the program I'm at right now was quality of life. So in the past, I only thought about the big names. I was only like, I only want the prestige. I only want the big name. It was my ego, right? When you're like not as mature in life, and when you are starting off, and you're like me, or you're in general a doctor, are pretty autocritical, and you're also trying to be the best, and your super me or your super ego is trying to be like, I need the best name attached to my name. You're like, I don't care if I'm gonna work 80 hours, 90 hours, 120 hours. Bring it on if you're gonna give me this incredible name on my white coat and CV, right? Well, in this occasion, I already went through residency once, so I understood like, yeah, quality of life is gonna be something I'm gonna take into account now, because I also want to preserve my life. I want to preserve my joyfulness and my drive. So part of that is factor in quality of life. I want to be able to reboot, reset every day, and get there and be my best version and keep on growing. So in the program I'm at right now, it's a great schedule. I can't complain, because in general it's a great schedule until you get to the ICU, because in the ICU we're usually short-staffed, and we don't have emergency medicine residents in our hospital. So imagine we make like a dual sort of thing where we have to go see admissions in the ED, and we act as emergency residents, and we also act as the ICU residents, because we also don't have ICU fellowship in-house. And we also have to work a lot, so it ends up averaging the most hours we do during residency, and it is 1 month to 2 months per year. So that's why in general pain is temporary, right? And in most of those residencies you'll be participating in, probably 80 hours a week will be the exception, right? If you are working in something else and you're working 80 hours a week every single day, for example, if you're Japanese, or you are one of these Asian countries that you're way overworked, yeah, I would recommend you to be honest, like reconsider where you're working at if you have to work 80 hours a week. So you have to become creative, you have to see what you can do, because 80 hours a week just week in, week out ends up making you exhausted, burnt out, and of course that increases the incidence and rates of suicide. So that's why you have seen that many people jump off buildings, because they have to work 80 hours a week without any, it's not like it's just a month, it's like for the foreseeable future you have to do 80 hours a week. So you're like, what's the point of living if I'm working 90 to 100 hours a week every single week, right? That's where you should reconsider things. And if there's a possibility you could, don't know, you have to do something, because it shouldn't be like that. It should be less than 80 hours. Okay, so pain is temporary. For most of us seeing this, pain is temporary. Either it's residency or it's 80-hour work weeks, it's gotta be temporary. So why am I showing you this image? Just look at this image. This is the only art piece which I've bought. Actually, I have it here on my wall over there. I have it, and this helps me every single day. I look at it and pay attention to what it is. So this is one of those persons I would recommend you looking up. This is David Goggins, and his mentality is like, you do what has to be done, and just don't question it, just do it, and in the end, it is what it is. If you can change it, change it. If you can't change it, just get at it, and yeah, and just overcome it. So what is David Goggins doing here? Look at him. He's half bleeding. He's getting all the flames on him, but he's continuing. Look at his face. He's expressionless. And in his what he's seeing is actually, he's seeing like death in front of him, but he's just going through it. So that takes me to my second point right here. If you have to go through hell, right, you might as well keep advancing and make the best out of it. So that's what I want to say. Some of you who are in these horrible or bad situations, you just have to keep going. There's no way for you to avoid an 80-hour work week or an 80-hour month, just go through it. And how do you go through it? Of course, you need some stuff, which is what we're going to talk about in this video, but it's going to be a lot mentality. So make the best out of it. So pain is temporary, nothing lasts forever, so make the best out of it. So I'll show you some things here. Let's see right here. For example, right here, I am working out, something that I do not drink any coffee. So I avoid coffee. I might drink one coffee once or maybe once a month if there's any special occasion, but I do not drink coffee. I do not drink any sports drink, any energy drinks, because I like the natural way. Natural way is basically working out. The way you can generate the same amount of endogenous endorphins and catecholamines for you to be driven, for you to have the energy, is working out. Working out has less side effects than all these energy drinks, so that's what I resort to, the natural evolutionary way. So that's what you're seeing a lot of right here. So I'm gonna just read you some nice quotes from the great Stoics. So this includes Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and others. This is something I found throughout my life, that Stoicism is something that, in a philosophy of life, that will help you irrespective of whatever you believe in. If you practice some way to a certain degree Stoicism, you will definitely benefit. So the trials you encounter today will introduce you to your strengths. Remain steadfast, and one day you will build something that endures, something worthy of your potential. So I think I am actually becoming my own example of this quote. So what better than to live things through your own shoes, right? So I've gone through a whole lot of trials in my life. I went through residency in another country, and it was a rocky road, and there was trials I had to deal with, and then just deciding like, I want to keep on growing. I feel like I'm reaching the professional growth limit. I want to go to the United States. I want to test myself over there, and I didn't even have money. I had to work maybe like 80-hour work weeks. I had to work Sunday to Sunday, and so half of the day I was working through internalmedicine. The other during the night I was doing night shifts in a private hospital ER, and I was also studying for the STEP exam. So yeah, you do what you have to do, right? So And understand that this is an investment into the future. So if you look at things like that and you can delay instant gratification, you can actually get to something that in the end is going to be better for yourself and for your family. So another nice quote is, throw me to the wolves and I will come back leading the pack. So this is a good mentality. So yeah, go get at it. You have a obstacle you have to go through, just throw yourself into it and then see how you will actually fix it. And if you do that, you'll end up eventually possibly leading the pack. What better than leading by example, right? So the last one here is, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. So this is something we usually avoid in medicine, because the medical culture is everyone expects you to have all the answers always. You have to know everything. No, just don't go with that flow, because you won't grow enough. If you act as if you know everything, there will be no space for improvement. So you have to be honest with yourself. If you don't want to say in public that you don't know X or Y, don't do it. But understand that you do not know X or Y and that someone else might know an answer. It doesn't mean that because you've been in residency 8 years, you cannot learn anything from your intern right now. So right now I've learned things from my intern. Actually, I'll show you my intern for this ICU rotation. I'm very glad I was able to share with him. And for example, some things I learned from him is that one day we had an admission, a patient that had head trauma, and he was going to start the patient on Keppra or levetiracetam for seizure prophylaxis. And I didn't remember this indication. I was like, why are you doing the Keppra? And he's like, yeah, in the context of trauma, it is an indication for prophylaxis. And I was, I thought it wasn't an indication for prophylaxis in general. And he's like, no, yeah, in trauma it is. And then I was like, okay, perfect. I didn't know that. Thanks. That was a great point. And I've learned more things from him. And that's the idea, that we continually grow and that you even show others that you don't know everything. If you show others that you're the owner of the truth, you'll be unlikable. You'll be one of those persons no one will even ask you stuff or won't want to share with you, because yeah, you'll show this narcissism, and that's not good, right? Okay, so let's go on to the next one. Let's go on to the next slide right here. Prepare, sorry for this right here, we're going to erase it. Prepare for the worst and expect the best. So maybe this should have been maybe recommendation 1 or 2. So what do I mean by this? So of course, these rotations, whenever you're going to a horrible rotation, schedule-wise, or you're in a job and you're like, oh man, this is going to be way too much work. Yeah, you have to prepare for the worst scenario, but you have to expect the best. So how do you do that? You have to do the basics. So remember, in the end, we are animals, and animals need to sleep, they need to eat, they need to receive sunlight. You do not make like your own photosynthesis, right? Well, even plants need the sunlight. Everyone needs the sunlight, right? So you need to work out. And it's not like workout is an invention of modern humans. No, before this thing, we had to actually go for our prey. We had to go get things. Here you can see me motivated, and I'm just working out right here. If you get 5 minutes, that's gonna be important, because this is my caffeine. So while you or someone else is making a line for Starbucks in your hospital, 10-15 minute line, I prefer to just ramp up the endogenous endorphins the natural way, and I don't waste any money right here. It is for free, and the benefits are even better. So, and you end up looking better, right? You're not disrupting your endocrinological system, etc., etc. So, what do I mean by sleep? So some of you sleep only 4 hours. I've met people that sleep like 3 hours and a half and they're good. That doesn't mean that that is you. So how much do you need to sleep to feel well rested? So in my case, it's about 7 hours. Like below 7 hours, six and a half, I already feel a little bad after 2 weeks in a row. If I do 8 hours, I'm extremely well rested. I would hope to do 8 hours. So, but above 7, I'm fine. So make sure you sleep well. And this I cannot stress enough. If you are sleeping a little bit less every single day chronically, it's a disservice to yourself. Why is it a disservice? Because you can't think. You're doing rounds, you're in rounds, and you can't even remember what the patient had. You cannot even remember what like when you get asked like, what are the causes for non-anion gap metabolic acidosis? You're like, which ones were they? I thought I knew this, but I don't remember this. And you space out. Sometimes that happens because you are not resting correctly. And I can tell you firsthand that in Costa Rica, when I did residency, I wasn't resting very well. And there's a whole lot of things I could have actually learned if I would have just prioritized sleeping instead of trying to hang out with a girl on a weekend, or go play soccer, or stay up late watching television, or not television. I was always like preparing or reading or doing these things, but sometimes it was better, don't read so much and just go to sleep, right? Go to sleep, and tomorrow it's gonna be more fruitful. I recommend you that. If you're yawning all day in the hospital, you're not doing something well. You have to get to the point that you're not yawning the whole day in the hospital. If you're doing that, or if you're falling asleep in the hospital, you're not actually making the best investment into your future and learning. So learn how much you sleep, and you can learn this very easily. Just do it on a weekend. On a weekend, just go to sleep, all alarm clocks off, or do this for a couple of weekends. And whenever you wake up very well rested, that's probably how much you need to sleep. And just figure that out and prioritize that. Initially, as you mature, it's going to be difficult. Once you get to my age where you're mature enough, you understand this and this clicks. But initially, when you're starting off residency, or you're a young resident, as most people are, they will basically understand this till their attendance. Once their attendance, they'll understand the importance of sleep. But hopefully, if you can practice this early on, you'll be worlds apart. Like your growth will definitely increase at least like 15-20%, and how much you can retain, how much information you're actually consolidating into the future, etc., etc. So eat well. So what do I mean by eat well? I would recommend you, first of all, is carbohydrate restriction. Remember that the carbs you are usually eating or you have access to in the hospital are refined carbohydrates. Basically, everything is refined carbohydrates with the exception of an apple that you can find there in the lounge, or an apple, a banana, a couple more things. And the rest is refined carbs. All those refined carbs will just make you sleepy. You'll go into the carb crash mode, meaning that you'll then need a coffee or an energy drink to wake up. It's not going to be nutritional for you, for your body. And yeah, it's just gonna make you feel bad and bloated. So what do I mean by eat well? Please make the investment into, before you leave your house, actually have a good breakfast here. As you can see, yeah, there's carbs, there's the bread, but yeah, sometimes you can eat a slice or two slices of bread. Don't make it the go-to every single day. On this special day, I had worked out and I really needed a lot of food. So I ate this, and then I ate up to till the evening because I was still full and had all the nutritional things I needed. Here you see that I supplement myself sometimes with a little protein, pre-workout, non-caffeinated, and some creatine. So creatine has been shown and linked to improve mental condition, and not only muscle, but also mental condition. So you can use that as well. And I take my Tupperware to work. So this was my day requirement of food requirements, and I only ate what my wife helped me get prepared. So of course I am blessed because my wife helps me out as well. And yeah, if you do not have someone who can help you out, this is something you have to invest into. You have to invest into cooking and preparing your food, and hopefully carb restricted. And I won't go into plant-based versus carnivore versus the middle. Just understand that of course humans are omnivores, masked sometimes as herbivores or carnivores, but we're omnivores. Look at our teeth. So we have the characteristics for both. So just use your own logic. And then we can have 10 to 15 minutes sunlight. So you do not want to have SAD, or seasonal anxiety disorder, I believe. Why? Because sunlight gives us happiness. So if we don't have sunlight for enough time, we are anxious, we're depressed, and this might go unnoticed if you're not receiving sunlight. So here you can see that as soon as I get a day off, I'm getting the sunlight. I'm taking off my shirt. I don't care if the people around, everyone has a shirt on. I don't care if it's 0 degrees Celsius or like 45 degrees Fahrenheit or less. Well, this day it was like 40 degrees, 45 degrees Fahrenheit, I think. And yeah, I'm shirtless. I'm getting all that area, body surface area to get the sunlight. I don't want osteoporosis when I'm old. I don't want to be vitamin D level insufficient as everyone is right now, and they don't understand it's because you're in four walls and you're not getting any sunlight. That's the reason. So get some sunlight. You have to work out. Here you've already seen me working out several times, and it's not an option, to be honest. It's non-negotiable. It's like, what did we do in the past? So we remember humans you don't evolve within 1,000 years. You evolve within hundreds of thousands to millions of years, right? So within just a couple thousand years, we were running behind. We were trying to get a lion. We were trying to get this other animal, and we were foraging. We were hunting. We were going to get the berries. So we were walking a whole lot. We were trying to jump on these animals and bring them back home, right, as prey. So you have to do what you have to do. Nowadays, we have none of this. Nowadays, you order online your food and you're not even moving. You're walking a little bit in the hospital. So yeah, you have to work out. You have to emulate what your body is made for. Your body is made for these periods of actually going to look for your food. And that's what I mean by working out. You can do whichever exercise you want. We can talk about exercise in another one, but you have to consistently work out. Music, movie, meditation. So this is basically me time. So what do I do in the hospital sometimes when we're like 12 hours straight or 13 hours straight in the hospital? Sometimes I put on my AirPods while I'm concentrating, and I put on this background music you can hear, which is like deep concentration music or healing wave music. So depending on the frequencies you choose, that is might produce different effects in your brain. And yeah, you can just listen to this. That's the reason I have this music on in the background. It's because it's soothing. And if you're working on notes, it's probably better than listening to nothing whatsoever, or to listen to people screaming in the background and joking and all this. Sometimes it's a little better that you get that me time, right? Even if you're in the hospital. So what do I mean by me time? Is just make sure you have your protected time for yourself. So it doesn't mean that in the hospital you have to be talking to everyone every single minute. So if there's a chance that you can go have your own time, some of you need to be alone 5 minutes, some of you need to be alone 1 hour. So you understand yourself. But you can understand when, yeah, I prefer to be alone for a while. So go grab that computer over there in the corner, put on your AirPods, listen to the deep concentration music, do what you have to do. If you have to go, if you like to have lunch on your own, so go to get your lunch in the parking lot in the 5th floor where there's no one and there's a little bit of fresh air, right? Do what you have to do. Get your protected time. Then let's go on to the next one. So here, this is point number 4, which is organize, prioritize, and execute. So this is a quote I read from Jocko Willink. I think he coined it. So it's very, very important. So don't just start doing tasks just for doing them. And the best way I understood the importance of organize, prioritizing, and executing was in Costa Rica, where you were the resident in night shift in charge of approximately 46 patients, sometimes 48 patients. And all the nurses start texting you and calling you while you're walking the hallway and giving you all these tasks. Some of those tasks don't even have to be dealt with that night. There are something to do in the morning. Some of those tasks are a priority. So that's why we have to learn to triage. Triaging is doing the same thing. It's to organize, prioritize, and execute. So that's what you have to do in the hospital. So in the hospital, nowadays I receive a text and it's like, I just wanted to inform you that this patient is flagging for sepsis, right? I'm like, okay, thank you. Like, I can see the chart, oh, a little bit tachycardic, but it's a little bit of pain. I already gave Tylenol a little bit earlier. That's it, thank you. Okay, moving on. Why? Because if you deal a whole lot of time with those little things, when you have a patient that is basically dying on you, you suddenly have all these different tasks unanswered, and that's where it gets horrible, right? So you have to organize, prioritize, and execute. So a couple more nice quotes. So he suffers more than necessary who suffers before necessary. So I'll give you an example. These are the people that are going through the emergency department list just to see how many patients there's in the emergency department. So maybe they already finished their work and then they go into the emergency department list because they're thinking, oh, how many patients can we get this night? Or let's see who of these patients is going to end up in our service soon. I think that is unnecessary. Like, you're just wasting your time. You're just making assumptions and predictions and looking into the future when you can use your time more productively. You could actually be working on an abstract. You can just open your computer and you can call your wife and see how she's doing. And if you have an admission, you'll get told, hey, you have an admission. This is the patient. Then you go see the patient. But just going through the ED department patients ahead of time to see who might end up in the service, it doesn't make sense. So that's what I mean by suffering before necessary. Just understand where to actually put in time. And the other quote is, the art of ignoring is learning what to ignore. So I don't mean you have to ignore messages, ignore people in the hospital. You just have to learn what needs your time and what does not need your time, because this is an art and you will learn it as you go. So so for example, when you get a sign out, and for example you have 14 to 17 ICU patients and you're getting the sign out, and while you're getting the sign out, the ICU attendant comes in and tells you, hey, we already have 2 admissions right now, these 2 are yours and we're expecting another 2, and I hope you guys see those, and as soon as you finish sign out, please go see such and such patient, which is a med call, and that other patient needs an arterial line. And you're like, okay, perfect. Okay, so you are in the sign out and your co-resident who is signing out to you tells you, like, and if you feel in the mood, you can go ahead and place a central line on bed number X, because we might need it tomorrow, a Quinton catheter, because we're thinking on dialysis, probably not tomorrow, but the next day. So that's the patient you're like, okay, that's not going to happen tonight because you're seeing all the work we already have. If we finish absolutely everything we have, we'll think about this possibility. So that's what I mean by ignoring is learning. The art of ignoring is learning what to ignore. So understand what actually needs your attention, what does not need your attention. Okay, then another example is, like, if you're with your intern and you're also with the ICU attendant, you can go see a patient real quick, an admission, but you don't have to go see the patient with the intern and then sit down, talk about the patient, and then start putting in orders. No, you have to learn how to be time efficient, because you might get another admission. So there's an admission, go see the patient, go ask the vital 5-6 questions you have to ask, get out of there, put in the admission orders while the intern is asking all the other questions for the HMP. And after you get that done, talk a little bit about the patient with the intern, or go through the orders and just make sure what happened, then move on to the next. But if you're in a night shift and there's nothing to do and there's just that admission, make sure you do the academia there. Make sure you do the POCUS and you teach your intern, and then go use the whiteboard and talk about a topic. But that's what I mean by organize, prioritize, execute. Then we have this point number 5, which is respect your home, family, and your happy place. Also part of the me time thing, right? So once you're out of work, you're out of work. So you leave work at work. So finish everything you need to do right there in the workplace. And then when you're home, don't go into the chart at home, although you have the capability, because if you're working on the chart at home, tomorrow you'll be already exhausted. And in 5 days, if you're doing this every single day, you're taking work home, you'll feel like crap. And you'll start reducing the quality of your work because you'll be burnt out. So make sure, get things done in the hospital. And once you're out of the hospital, get home. If it's been a whole lot of days and you want to eat this junk food because you have worked a whole lot and you just wanted to eat it, do it. If it's the exception, this isn't going to get you obese. This isn't going to disrupt your metabolics as much, right? If you want to look at the movie, see the movie, detach. So when you put your foot out of the hospital, detach. Because if you're connected to the hospital and you're connected to the messaging system, everyone out of the hospital will get pissed off with you, your wife, your dogs, and eventually yourself. So hopefully you don't learn this too late. Okay, so that's why you have to detach to reboot and refresh for tomorrow's battle. So it's quality over quantity, right? It's not that you are in the hospital and or the other option is, you think you are so good at work because you don't leave at 7 p.m., but you leave at 9:30 p.m. Yeah, people will be like, oh, this guy works so hard. He leaves at 9:30 p.m. But you'll start doing bad work. So after 5 days, after a week, you'll keep on leaving at 9:30 p.m., but you're half as efficient. So that's why you're leaving at 9:30 p.m., because your efficiency has gone to waste, because you're not able to detach, you're not able to reboot, reset, and it's vital that you get out of there, detach. It's a right you have. So if you're in a place you cannot detach, that's problematic and something should be done about it. So this thing I show here is a shoe. So it's been a couple of years since I don't have hiking shoes, and in Costa Rica we couldn't even afford it because we had to use all the money to invest it into applying here in the States. And now it's a couple of years and now I can buy these shoes. I just finished my ICU rotation. Now I gave myself the treat, right? Now I have the shoes. Now it's time to relax a little bit more. So learn how to detach and enjoy. You deserve it. And let's see what else we got here. Point number 6. So we're almost finishing. So all you need is to actually care for what you're doing. If you care, you are accountable. And if you're accountable, you'll leave till the job is well done. So actually, one of the hospitals I worked in Costa Rica spoke about the philosophy of carelosophy, which is the philosophy of caring. So that's the importance of this. You have to care. If you care, you'll do things right. So if you care, you're gonna be the intern who you don't have to ask several times like, hey, you didn't say anything about the potassium being 6.5. No, because if you care and you actually understand the importance of the potassium, first you have to understand the importance, then you have to, if you care, you care, if you don't, you don't. So if you understand that a potassium of 6.5 is problematic in most cases, or in general, and you're not doing anything about it, you probably don't care, or you don't care enough. But if you have the 6.5 and you're doing something about it and you're like signing out, on sign out, you're like the potassium is 6.5 and I put in a recheck and the recheck will be here soon, it will be in an hour, but please check up on that. We just gave insulin or we just gave bicarbonate, this and that. That means you care. And if you care and you show people you care, you gain trust, right? So right here I have my friend, Dr. Brookins, great person, great human, great professional. So it's always important to show others the respect they deserve. So in medicine, we oftentimes just call people and tell them their problems and their deficiencies. And whenever they do things right, we're just like, okay, bye-bye, that's it. We don't say, hey, you're doing great. You're doing a great job. Keep it up. So as time passes, I learned that this is very important. Positive reinforcement is also very important in a person's life in general. So Brookins, if you see this ever, you're the man. You're doing great. If you keep on doing what you're doing, sky's the limit, man. So this guy is great. Really enjoyed working with this guy, learned a lot from this guy. So show others that you care for them. So it's not only caring for the patients, you have to care for your team. You have to care for the nurse, the tech, the person who sweeps the floor, and your intern, okay? And the same thing goes for you. Care for yourself as if your wellness depended on it. So we oftentimes forget that as well. So last thing I'm gonna say about this point is, never depend on the admiration of others. There is no strength in it. Personal merit cannot be derived from an external source. So all of us are biased. So we have our own biases, we have our own ego and all that. And yeah, it's a shame, but most of us don't recognize greatness when we see it. We just recognize when someone's doing bad. So if you depend on someone else to tell you, hey, you did this great, you might be waiting for that years on end, and that won't be a good marker for you. So if you just actually care for what you're doing and you're accountable for what you're doing, and you get home and you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, I gave it all I had and the patient improved, or I'm doing this based on the evidence we have to date, that's all that matters. You just have to rest in bed. When you go to sleep, you have to ask yourself, is my consciousness clean? And every day you wake up in the morning, you have to polish your consciousness. Because if you start making your consciousness, contaminating it, just leaving the hospital with a potassium of 6.5 and not telling anyone and being like, no one will notice. If you do that enough times, your consciousness will no longer be a good marker. So you have to have this thing clean. And that's why if you care, you'll start improving lives around you and your own life. So we're going to end up with the last point, which is Kaizen, which is a very nice philosophy from Japanese thing going on here. So it says that Kaizen means Japanese term for change, that means change for the better or continuous improvement, which serves as the basis for a Japanese business philosophy. So it's telling you about marginal gains. It's telling you that go in there every single day to be a little bit better than you were yesterday. And if you do that, on the long run, you'll be incredible. So let's just apply these things. And these are my top points of not only how to survive residency or 80 hours work weeks, it's how to excel in whatever you're doing in life. And I'm trying to lead by example, so I'll keep on doing this till I have my last breath. So you're invited to join it. If you're seeing this, you know how to get to my YouTube channel. I also have an Instagram, and as long as one person was touched by this video, that's it. So actually, this video improves myself, so I'm already happy with it. If 5 people see it and 1 person is benefited, that's it. That's all we care about. So see you in the next one, and hope you guys have a great day. Peace.